ABC News, the most trusted news source. Get breaking updates with live notifications and access the latest news and information.
Identified as coronavirus hotspots.
Go to abc.net.au or download the ABC News app.
A-League football is back.
Form God has gone out the window.
Time to finish what we started.
Oh my word!
Catch one match per week live on ABC TV and iView.
Simply brilliant!
5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday.
Cometh the hour, cometh the man.
As the race for the finals intensifies, we'll take you there.
That's a splendid goal.
Find out more at football.abc.net.au.
The mystery of North Korea's ghostly armada finally exposed. Pillaging the high seas of its fish stocks, busting UN sanctions, to bring back hard cash for a dictator. Foreign Correspondent, tomorrow at 8 on ABC and iView.
Tomorrow on News Breakfast, we look at the new warfare between nations with keyboard warriors battling it out online.
And singer-songwriter Ben Folds joins us with some new music penned while spending time in isolation when he suddenly had to cancel his Australian tour. Don't miss it.
I'm an ordinary girl who believed in a dream.
And we call it the iPad.
In the midst of this disaster, there have been stories of great heroism.
There is the man who's won the Tour de France.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man.
The elusive Higgs boson particle.
Touchdown confirmed.
Curiosity is now on the surface of the red planet.
Scenes of excitement here outside St Mary's Hospital.
Youngest ever recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Racism stops with me.
So all for McDonald.
I didn't think I'd see this day.
Free at last after 3 years in captivity.
Women speak! We are here! We will not go away!
What a day for love!
They responded to the president by taking a knee.
There's a genuine sense of optimism.
This is probably the best good news story that I've ever covered.
We will commit to an Australian National Space Agency.
My generation will not give up without a fight.
We have seen what we thought was unseeable.
Australians are going to be inspired and proud about what Australia really can do.
Know the story with ABC News.
Victoria records 177 new coronavirus cases and the federal government pledges more military support.
We will be providing an additional 1,000 ADF members. Those members will serve in a variety of roles.
New South Wales authorities say moronic behaviour at parties must stop as the state tries to contain growing outbreaks. A new round of stimulus, 5 million Australians to get more money in their pockets. And the skyrocketing number of cases in the US, Florida records the highest daily rise in infections in any state since the pandemic began. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Karina Carvalho. The Commonwealth is releasing 5 million masks from the national stockpile for Victoria as the state grapples with multiple COVID-19 outbreaks. The Health Minister, Greg Hunt, has also announced an extra 1,000 Defence Force personnel are being deployed on top of the 350 ADF members supporting the state's response. Reporter Stephen Schubert has more from Melbourne. Stephen, take us through this announcement from the federal government today.
Good afternoon. So 2 big announcements from Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt this afternoon. Now, the first one is that 5 million masks from the National Health Stockpile will be released to Victoria. 1 million of them will be provided to general practitioners and the other 4 million will be distributed to aged care facilities. So perhaps that's an indication of what the priorities and concerns in Melbourne are here. Now, the other big announcement is another 1,000 Australian Defence Force personnel are being deployed to Victoria. There's already a couple of hundred people here in the state. They're doing things like helping out at the border checkpoints, helping out at quarantine facilities. They don't have the legal authority that Victorian police officers do, so they will be distributed in consultation with the state government here. Now, as I said, Minister Hunt has been out speaking about this today. Let's have a listen of what he said about this ADF deployment.
They come on top of the approximately 350 that we currently have in place, and those 350 include approximately 120 supporting police at checkpoints across the lockdown zones, 188 that are working in supporting the testing regime.
Stephen, you're outside an aged care home where there's been an outbreak. What's happening there and what are the latest numbers?
Karina, I'm at the Menorock Aged Care Facility in Essendon in Melbourne's northwest. Now, there are 26 cases here amongst staff and residents, which is highly concerning. In fact, we've just seen an ambulance pull out. A person was loaded into the ambulance with staff in full hazmat suits. So we're not quite sure what's happening there, but that is concerning. There are more aged care facilities as well across Melbourne, but this facility is the one that is the most concerning. Now, all up in Victoria today, we've got 177 new cases. 151 of those cases are still under investigation as to the source. We know that 72 people are in hospital, 17 people are in intensive care. So, look, that number is lower. We've seen 3 days in a row of numbers above 200 new cases a day. That number's lower, but still quite high.
And what are authorities saying about the numbers turning around in Victoria?
Well, they're not celebrating too much yet. 177 new cases, of course, is still quite concerning for authorities. And the Chief Health Officer, Professor Brett Sutton, has warned people that we may not have even hit the peak of this second wave yet. Let's have a listen to what he had to say this morning in Melbourne.
I'm not going to be complacent about today's number. It's great that it's lower than our peak, but it may not be our peak yet. So I would like to see a week of decreasing numbers before I come and say that I've got greater comfort about the direction we're going in.
And Premier Daniel Andrews today also said that he was looking at data that suggested Melburnians were staying at home. The state government looking at traffic data, other data sets that shows movements of people. So he was quite happy about that. But of course, we're not yet one full week into this 6-week lockdown, Karina.
A long way to go yet. Stephen Schubert reporting from Melbourne. There are major concerns in New South Wales over an outbreak at a pub which has so far infected 13 people. Reporter Jessie Dorset joins me now in the studio. Jessie, before we talk about the incident in Casula, you have breaking news on another coronavirus case.
Yeah, Karina, this involves the Star Casino, one of Sydney's biggest venues. It's released a statement in the last 30 minutes confirming that a patron that attended Star Casino on the 4th of July, that's a Saturday night, they've tested positive for coronavirus. Now, we understand that that person was at the Star Casino between 7:30 and 10:30 on the Saturday night. Star Casino says the venue is cleaned thoroughly every day, so it hasn't been shut down.
Okay, so 4 of today's cases have been linked to the Crossroads Hotel. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so this now brings the total number of infections linked to the cluster at Casula in Sydney's southwest to 13. It's growing fast. We only found out about the first case last Friday. One of the reasons is because it's a popular pub and, you know, not only for locals where they gather there quite regularly, but also, as the name suggests, the Crossroads, there's many major arterial routes that go past the venue, so there's a lot of travellers there from across the country. Now, we've been asking the police about whether the venue has been following its COVID-safe plans. It says it's investigating that. But more broadly, across New South Wales, police have issued a warning to other venues who perhaps aren't following the COVID-safe plans that they need to fall into line. We've also seen a few big parties in Sydney's eastern suburbs over the weekend that have gotten out of hand. And the state's police minister, David Elliott, says unless people do the right thing, the state government will have no other choice but to impose more restrictions.
This is a wake-up call, Sydney. This is a wake-up call, New South Wales. The industry has to take responsibility. I'm comfortable that they are. They know full well what's at risk, but I am also making sure the patrons know that they've got to work with the industry to ensure that the right thing's being done.
So what's the health advice for people who were at the Crossroads Hotel?
Yeah, some really important messages for the people that were there from the 3rd of July, that's a Friday, to last Friday when it shut down. They're being told to self-isolate immediately for 2 weeks. Now, that 2-week period starts when they were last at the Crossroads Hotel. Karina, on Friday, the 3rd of July, we know that there are about 600 people that went through that venue that night. So that gives you an indication of how many people are going to have to self-isolate now. It would be well over 1,000, perhaps thousands. And there are some high-profile people that have been caught up in this as well. They include the Bulldogs player, Jake Avilo, the 20-year-old. He was with his parents at the Crossroads 8 days ago, so he's now self-isolating with his family, as is the federal Labor MP Anne Stanley. We spoke to her a little earlier. Now, a few other venues have also had to close because patrons that were at the Crossroads have also visited those locations. They include Planet Fitness at Casula, the Picton Hotel, which is a little bit further south, and in the Riverina in New South Wales, Karina, Wagga Wagga, there are about 12 defence personnel who are awaiting coronavirus tests after they went to the Crossroads Hotel before they were due to be deployed to the New South Wales-Victorian border operation down south there. So they're self-isolating, as is the rest of their contingent in Wagga Wagga. They were sent down from Sydney. So still a long way to go as the disease detectives try to trace who could be involved in this outbreak.
Yeah, indeed, a long way to go. Jessie Dorset with the latest there. Australian researchers say a COVID-19 vaccine could be available by mid-next year. It comes as human trials begin for a possible treatment developed by the University of Queensland. Reporter Talissa Saganto is in Brisbane.
This is phase 1 of this trial being held here in Brisbane, and it's going to be looking at vaccine safety and immune response. So today volunteers will be given 1 of 2 doses of the possible immunisation. The researchers will measure the responses to those doses, and monitoring is expected to take place for about 12 months. So they're looking for things like adverse reactions to the vaccine, as well as its effectiveness and just how much of a dose would be needed. Now, preliminary results of this trial are expected to be released as early as September, and researchers say if things are looking promising, they can fast-track some further trials to as early as later this year. This is Dr. Paul Young, one of the lead researchers in developing the vaccine. This is what he had to say this morning.
In the context of the sort of vaccine that we're dealing with, it's a protein-only vaccine. That has had a very safe transition in many of its guises in different vaccine targets before. So we're very confident that the safety issue is not a concern here. Like every vaccine trial, this may or may not succeed. It's not a guaranteed, but we're confident that we'll get through there to a positive outcome in the end.
Talissa, who are the volunteers?
Well, there's 120 volunteers who are Queenslanders. They're aged between 18 and 55, but one of the key characteristics for these people was that they had to be healthy in order to be eligible. So that means no pre-existing conditions. Researchers tell us that when they put the call out for volunteers earlier this year, they were inundated with responses. They got about 4,000 people who put their hands up to be involved. We spoke to a few of those volunteers today, just asking them why exactly they wanted to put their hands up to be guinea pigs. Most of the responses that we had were people who said that they wanted to get things back to normal, and they were very sad about the fact that people have lost financial losses and also personal and emotional losses, and they wanted to do what they could to be able to get the world back on track.
Yeah, it's remarkable.